everyone, welcome back to my class. For today's lesson, we will be having lesson 2, which is nature of business communication. Our topic will be the definition of business communication. As stated by Finberg 1982, business communication is a process of imparting or interchange of thoughts, opinions, and information by speech, writing, or signs for the business of living, learning, or earning a living. Business communication is a complex process of information exchange involving ideas, situations, feelings, functions, resources, products, and services for the satisfaction of the parties concerned. Both parties may share it's either a service or a tangible product or material. According to Manoy 2010, commerce or trading between and among people took place during the prehistoric times. If you can still remember or recall that back then there is what we call a negotiation that is called barter, where the product of the buyer and the seller can interchange. For example, my product is an alcohol, and the product that I wanted to exchange for my alcohol is my water. So what am I going to do is to interact and to talk and negotiate with my buyer or the other seller for me to exchange my alcohol to his water. And if we have this agreed uh, with this situation, then I will have the water and he will have the alcohol. And that is what we call the barter. There is no involvement of money. There is no use of money, but the mode of payment is that the products that we can offer. But at our time, in this modern time, we are now using money as our mode of payment. Another mode of payment, we can use the ATM, the automated teller machine, using our card. With just one swipe, you can pay the product or the service, or else the money or the monetary, um, the coins, the paper money. So the exchange of goods between buyers and sellers involves money. And any transaction that includes or involves monetary consideration is known as business. Now, sabihin natin, nagbayad ka, any transaction na nag-involve ng money is considered as business. Pakitandaan po ha, lahat ng may kinalaman sa pera or basta nagbigay ka ng pera na transaction, that is what we call business. So therefore, business communication is the communication that takes place between two parties bound by a transaction of a financial nature or having no financial character. So, sabi din po, with or without involvement of money, if there is a transaction between the buyer and the seller or the client and the clientele, then it is considered as business. And business communication is used for that business. An example for financial character is that a director is negotiating with an artist to have a movie contract or film contract for 1 year. Of course, the talent fee of that artist or actor should be paid monetary. Okay po? But on the other hand, the non-financial character, an example of that is that the HR office or the HRD sends a letter for a probationary employee which was about to be terminated from the company. Did you understand? Okay, the next topic is the process of communication. So communication has the elements, the message, the sender, channel, receiver, and the feedback. So you look at the diagram or the illustration of communication process. So message is the body or the content of the negotiation or the transaction. Without the message, there is no communication. Next element is the sender. The sender is the source of the message that has the full authority or to explain or decode the meaning of the information created. The sender is the one who sends the message, who generates the idea from his idea to the receiver. Next, channel, the way by which the message may be carried or communicated. It could be letter carriers, relay stations, or transmitters are some common channels. Another channel is that the telephone or the cell phone that we use. Channel is the mode of communication kung saan dadaan yung message na ipapadala mo sa receiver. Next element is the receiver, the party who accepts the message from the sender. Of course, receiver, sino yung makakatanggap ng message mo? It is also the listener. Take note that the receiver and the sender can also be the listener. Dahil you will not understand the message without even listening. Kaya tandaan po na malaking bagay ang pakikinig. Next element is the feedback, the response of the receiver to the sender. The sender could also give a response or a feedback to the receiver. Take note po that it is vice versa. A communication process is a give and take process. For topic 3, we have modes of business communication. Again, according to Manny 2010, as in any field, communication in business comes in oral and written modes. Of course, when we say oral, oral is spoken. Oral business communication uses spoken words. It exists between tellers and depositors, the transaction, the negotiation between the tellers and the depositors, a resource speaker and the seminar workshoppers. A resource speaker speaks or discusses a topic and the workshoppers are listening. Next example is the between foreman and the laborers. A foreman instructs the laborers on how to do that certain task, a building or a road. Also, a sale between the sales lady and a customer. A customer is asking for, do you have a size 38 of these shoes? Can I have this? They are having this spoken communication, spoken business communication, and that is what we call the oral business communication. On the other hand, in written business communication, of course, it uses the pen and paper, or in our time, our computer-generated printed materials. So it takes place between the applicant and the human resource department officer, an external evaluator or auditor, and the corporation's stockholders. between a bank manager and his clients, and the procurator and his employees. Another thing is between a lending institution and debtors. So they to transact and negotiate with their client or their buyer, they use the written materials or printed materials. In oral communication, there are things to be considered. So a business communicator must have a good command of the language he uses for communication. He ought to be proficient orally. You can deliver a word or a message to your listener. To attain proficiency in oral business communication, he should consider in every speaking situation the elements that make up the speaking paradigm devised by Delheims. And these are the elements. Setting. Setting, of course, in literature, we have the setting, the time, and the place, okay? The same here in business communication, the speaker must consider the time and the place, when and where he will deliver or give the speech or the talk that he needs to give. So, where are you going to conduct your speech? Do you have, are you going to do it in an auditorium, audiovisual room, theater, church, or classroom? Of course, you have to consider the place. Do you need to modulate your voice? Or do you need to speak subtle? The time. The time is also considered in delivering a speech. So the venue dictates the kind of clothes to be worn by the speaker. Okay, you are to deliver a message in a seminar workshop, business seminar workshop, then your attire is shorts and a t-shirt. So it is not compatible. It is not appropriate to the venue. And take note that your appearance has something to do with the impression of your listener. Next element is the participant. Participants or who the interlocutors take part in the speaking activity. They are both speakers and listeners. So, when you are delivering a speech, hindi lang ang suot mo ang kailangan mong i-consider. Pati ang place, kung sino yung mga nasa harap mo, yung age, yung gender, educational attainment, level of intelligence, occupation, and other personal data. For example, you are going to give educational lesson, and your participants are parents. So, of course, the language that you need to use is, of course, you have to adjust. Hindi pwedeng gumamit ka ng malalalim na words dahil kailangan mo i-consider ang kanilang educational attainment because hindi lahat ng parent ay nakapagtapos ng pag-aaral or hindi lahat ng parent ay alam yung word na yan. Okay po? Next. And you should be careful of the words that you will spit because there are people who are sensitive, word sensitive. Next is the end. Why? The speaker must have a single purpose in mind in preparing the speech he will present. So, bakit ka ba magde-deliver ng speech na yan? Next, act. How? The manner of how you will deliver your speech. Paano mo i-deliver yung speech mo? Formal ba yung occasion or informal? It must be considered. Now, next, Key, how formal, so this one, formality or informality of the speech occasion. What should be your attire and how should you speak in front of the people? Instrument, with that instrument or medium. With what instrument or medium? The most basic instrument in human communication is the voice. Other than the voice, the speaker may use a microphone, a megaphone, or a speaker to modulate, amplify your voice. Norm. The speaker's primary concern is the topic or the subject of his speech. Initially, what matters to the speaker as well as the listeners is what is spoken about. Of course, it is important to know kung ano ba ang topic mo. There are a lot of people na yung iba, dapat i-discuss niya is about business, but nag-discuss siya, nag-share siya na about sa buhay niya. More on about sa buhay niya kaysa dun sa business na dapat niyang i-present. And the genre, which kind? Speech may fall under any of the four genres according to purpose of the oral discourse. The genres are exposition. Exposition, you are explaining a topic. You must explain a topic. Description, you are just sharing or describing a particular situation to the listener. Narration, you are telling a story or narrating a story. And argumentation, you are giving or sharing a point to your listener. Okay, let us move to the other form of business communication, which is the written business communication. So, business communication comes in three forms: printed forms, letter forms, and report forms. Of the three, the printed forms are the most common and the report forms are the least common. Facilitate the task of the business correspondent. Some firms transform business letters into readily available printed forms. So here's an example of readily available printed form. This is a library AVR reservation form. So as you can see, the student may fill out the form readily. Okay. Another thing, application form. Okay. Application form for a building construction or a next, letter form. So, business letters are of various kinds. They are used to document almost all business transactions such as sale, sales return, purchase return, and others. Here is an example of letter forms. Report forms. Compared to business letters, business reports are longer works because usually they are 5 long or even longer. They contain more details and they are more formal, impersonal than business letter. So let us have the directions of business communication. So in an organization, the people there are arranged in a hierarchy. So if you are familiar or if you have seen an organizational chart, then it could also, you can see the hierarchy of the organization, the people in an organization, from the highest top rank to the lowest. So to promote a harmonious and good working relationship between and among these people, they must deal accordingly with co-workers through proper business communication. Knowledge of the directions of business communication is important in this respect, according to Manoy J. 2010. Of to have a harmonious relationship with your coworkers now, aside from the spoken words, spoken communication, you must learn to know how to write or to compose or to deal with your coworkers with with knowing what is the direction of business communication. So let us have the downward direction. Downward, ibig sabihin, pababa. From highest to lowest. Right. The example here is from the superior to the subordinate. So superior is, for example, the manager, the CEO of the company, and the subordinates are the employees. The most common of the directions of business communication is downward. Usually downward because galing sa taas, because yung mga employees or subordinates na yan, they are just following the instruction of who is at the top or of the leader. Tama po? Now, usually a superior issues a memorandum to his subordinate. Memoranda issued by subordinates to their superiors are rare. So, sabi daw, ang usually naman talagang nagbibigay ng memo ay ang superiors. Madalang na ang magbibigay ng memo sa superiors ay ang subordinate. Next, pababa po yun from manager to the employee. Upward direction. Upward business communication proceeds from a subordinate to a superior. As in, for example, a reply of an accounting clerk to a chief accountant. So it is considered as upward direction. For example, an accounting chief accountant sent a letter to the accounting clerk, then the answer or the reply of the accounting clerk is considered as the direction of that reply is upward direction because galing siya sa accounting clerk papunta sa chief accountant. So, pataas. Did you understand po? Okay, another example of upward direction is that a resignation letter of an employee addressed to the HRD officer. So you're giving your resignation letter, you're an employee to the HR. Next, a report sales of clerk submitted to the manager. So it is also lahat na pinapasubmit from the lower or the low rank employee or personnel to the higher or top rank personnel is considered as upward direction. Another thing, a student's mini thesis submitted to his research advisor. So that is also included in what kind of direction? Upward direction dahil pataas from student to the advisor. Next, sideward or lateral direction. So it occurs between peers. For example, employee to employee. You're sending a letter to them. Your coworker is sending a letter to you. First, guess, in your situation, your classmate is sending a letter, or tayo, sending a letter to you that it is considered as sideward or lateral direction. For example, I am sending a letter, a request letter to my co-teacher to become a judge of one of my events in class. Then it is considered as sideward or lateral direction. Basta yung ka-level mo, magsisend ka ng letter sa ka-level mo, then it is sideward or lateral direction. Same level po, yun sila. Another example, a memorandum issued by a dean in one college to a dean in another college, from the CBAM dean to the CTE dean, from the CAST dean to the CBAM dean. Okay? Another thing, yan, condolence letter given to a teacher by his fellow teachers. Congratulations letter received by a laborer from his co-workers. Next, outward direction. Outward, ibig sabihin, palabas. From the inside of the company to the outside of the company or to the other company. For instance, a sales manager of wine manufacturing company distributes sales letters promoting the company's new liquor products to wholesalers. So that's an example of outward direction. For example, from the CBAM office to the CTE office. That's an example of outward direction. Or from the Occidental Mindoro State College to the Divine Word College of San Jose. That's an example of outward direction. From Occidental Mindoro State College to Batangas State University, outward direction. Next, inward, papasok. Okay, balik rin lang natin from CTE office to CBAM office. From Bat State U to Occidental Mindoro State College. Papasok po, papasok. So, yun siya. Then, the electronic mail or email. So, I hope that you understand the directions of business communication and take note of these directions. Electronic mail or email, which is very useful and very common at this era. Because of the advent of technology, we are all, I believe that we are all familiar with this email. Some of us are not just yet truly what do you call that? Good or not literate in using this email. So email, which is short for electronic mail, started as a personal, sometimes cryptic form of correspondence and has involved a primary form of communication. Because of this desirable characteristics. So bakit ba patok na patok ang email, lalo na sa ating panahon ngayon? Because it is convenient, efficient, delivery, and cost saving. Convenient. For example, magpapadala ka ng letter from the other school dahil magta-transfer ka, diba? Kung wala tayong email, ipapadala mo yung letter sa post office, magbabayad ka, and it takes time para ma-receive nila yung letter na sinend mo. Another thing, efficient delivery. Mas mabilis nga naman kapag nasa email. Cost saving, magpapaload ka lang, di ba? Hahanap ka lang ng signal, then kapag okay na yung Gmail mo, then mag-sign in ka, okay na. Pwede mo nang isend yung mail mo. But in a face-to-face situation, magbabayad ka pa. Di ba meron pang stamp? Mag-stamp, magbabayad ka sa stamp, magbabayad ka sa post office. And that is it po. So, to write an effective email messages, a correspondent must bear in mind the following suggestions offered by Brantley and Miller 2007, as cited by Menoy 2010. There are 26 suggestions from Brantley and Miller. So you just read it. It's a self-explanatory. Okay. So bear in mind those 26 suggestions from Brandt and Miller. And I hope that you learned something today. And that ends my presentation. Goodbye. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching.